Bump and Run with Bernie and Dahlby. Presented by Burrito Express, your local burrito joint. Now, here's Brett Bernheisel and Steve Dahlby.
Well, here we are. And I got nothing. I don't have a prop. I don't have anything. This sign company, whatever, they're gone. The other company I'm using, they're gone. We got nothing. But, Dahlby, this is show 19, and I'm excited to do this program tonight.
Well, I am too. And the end of 18, I let you know that Christian McCaffrey could kiss my ass. Today, Lamar Jackson can kiss my ass. And then who did I play against? George Kittle can kiss my ass.
Yeah, Kittle, yes.
There's a guy named Justin Jefferson. He can kiss my ass too. I got killed. I'm heading to the losers bracket in the playoffs, and I'm disappointed.
And I didn't say anything to anybody last week because I didn't want to get cocky. But I'd won 3 in a row in fantasy. And I, too, played against George Kittle today. Oh. And it's not going to work out. So I think for the 3rd consecutive season, unlike you, who's won twice in a row in fantasy, this will be my 3rd consecutive season in the losers bracket, where if you win the losers bracket, you have an opportunity to – we have a rookie draft. You have an opportunity to be the first pick in the rookie draft. And for the 3rd straight year, that'll be my goal. So for all the money that I've invested in this, that is my a goal. Real quick before we get started with this beautiful program, there were numbers on the flags this week at the Hero Championship, and I know we discussed last week.
So you're happy
that you don't see numbers this week at the Hero. They had numbers, and the first thing I thought to myself was, yes, back to old school golf.
You had to be so happy. And speaking of old school golf, last week we talked a little bit about, we talked a lot about Lee Elder passing away. And I was reading a little bit about him after we did our podcast. And he started out as a caddy, as many many people did back in those days. He was a caddy, started, sneaking out on the golf course to learn to play, after he was done with his rounds with members at the club. And then he was in the service, and I noticed that he was stationed at Fort Lewis, which is up in the Pacific Northwest. And I think it was a general maybe noticed that he could play some good golf, and he kind of put him in a position where he got to play golf with some of the other officers, which is something that Lee Trevino did. And there's been some other players that have done that when they were in the service. But he played the golf course at Fort Lewis, and I have actually played that golf course a few times. My parents used to play up there. There's the Fort Lewis, the Army base. They have a golf course. They have 27 holes there, so that's where Lee Elder played. And then there's McCord Air Force Base, and it's kind of a joint base, and McCord has 18 holes, so I used to play there a little bit a few years ago. So it was just interesting to read that's kind of how he learned to play. And it is so different when you think about how people learned to play golf back then and then became good players. And now you kind of have the factory of junior golfers that, not all of them come from private clubs, but there's the great instruction, there's all the tournaments they can play in, and there's sort of the stepping stones. And it's much different than Lee Elder had to do. And Bernie, when did you start playing golf? How old were you? And was it your dad that got you into it?
So I was young. I was 4, maybe. And, my dad was the assistant golf pro at Bel Air Country Club in L.A. And my first round of golf was with this famous actor who I don't even know if he's still alive, Robert Stack. But he got me into the game, but he never taught me the game. So that's what's a fascinating question of what you just asked, because I learned how to play golf basically from his friends. And in the valley here in Phoenix, there was a lot of, I wouldn't say great players back then, but they were good players that had their time on the PGA Tour. So there were tournaments that, I was like, I don't know, 6, 7, 8. I would actually go out and, like Lee Elder did, caddy for him. And, I didn't know how to caddy, but I was young. I cleaned the ball and cleaned the clubs. And I just watched how some of these, and they were tour players. I mean, they made it on the tour. They played in tour events, but they just weren't very good as far as, like, to keep their card. And I just watched how they played. And that's basically how I learned to play the game. And I never was really – my dad really never taught me. I don't think he ever wanted to. I think it was one of those, you know what, I don't want to be the father-son deal, learn from somebody else. And I took lessons as a kid, and I changed my grip from the interlock to the overlap, and it didn't work, but things like that. But I learned how to play just by watching. And I think that's the easiest thing. It's like my wife, Ellie. I mean, she wants to learn how to play golf. I ain't teaching her. It ain't going to be me. It's going to be somebody else. And I think that's how me and my father, our arrangement worked, because I learned from these other guys, and I became good. I wouldn't say great, but I was good. I mean, when I was, 16, 17, 18 years old, I could compete. And then as, time went on, I didn't put as much focus into the game, and I found other things in life, and I decided to do that. But, I mean, if I look back, and I don't regret it. I never will regret it. I look back at the fact that I grew up with, I hate to say it, Billy Mayfair, and him and I were 1-2 every event. He might win, I might win, and he went on, and that's what he wanted to do, was pursue a dream, and I did too. But I got to a point where I just didn't think I could do it anymore. I didn't have the dedication, the drive, the things like that to spend 24 hours a day hitting putts and hitting chips, and my game deteriorated. And now I co-host a podcast show.
Yeah, there you go. And I sometimes think with my two kids, I was kind of like your dad. I didn't want to be the pushy golf pro with my sons. And I do think sometimes, especially with my older son, Andrew, that I wish I would have maybe got him into golf a little bit more, because I don't know if you've seen him swing it, but he swings it nice, but he just never really had the push from me that maybe would have got him into tournaments and stuff. So he enjoys the game, but it's like, the competitive side. Sometimes I think, well, he might have been, he could have been a lot better than he is right now had I pushed him a little bit. But then you get into the situation, and we can kind of transition into this, where it's the Tiger Woods, Earl Woods situation with the parent and the golfer, and there's great things that happen with that sometimes when you have a dad pushing you, but there's also the downside of that. And obviously we got to see a little bit of Tiger Woods this week. What did you think about seeing Tiger out there?
Well, before I jump into that, I want to talk about, and you brought up something, and it just got to me. There was a kid. His name was Jonathan Baker, who basically it was me, Mayfair, and Jonathan Baker that as juniors competed, and it was literally 1, 2, 3 every single week. And Jonathan Baker usually won, but his dad would beat the shit out of him if he played bad. And I think that's where my dad drew the line, okay, I want no part of this. And this kid had so much talent and so much going forward, but had so much pressure from his parents not some of his, I shouldn't say parents. His mom was on the off. She was over there, but his dad literally, I'd watch him slap his kid if he didn't win a golf tournament. If I beat the kid in a tournament, he'd slap him. So now that translates to what you were just saying right now, that Earl was hard on Tiger. And now, I watched this Golf Digest interview with Tiger, and I don't remember the lady's name, the other day, his first interview since, the crash. And he talked about his son, Charlie, how he's trying to, and Tiger's hands-on with this. I mean, it's not somebody, it's Tiger doing this. And he talked about how like Charlie's scores were starting to get worse and worse. And then he went out and watched him play, and he said his son had a temper like Tiger. And all they talked about was like strategy on how not to make a 9 on a par 5. And Tiger has been doing this in his rehab with Charlie, you know, having putting and chipping contests and things like that to try to improve his game. That's something that, like, back in the day, that didn't happen. And I think he's had so much downtime, and I think watching his son get better has driven Tiger to maybe, you know, come back. And he said he's going to come back. He's not going to play a full schedule, so don't anybody ever ask him, you know, how many tournaments he's going to play. He's going to play maybe 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, whatever tournaments it is, which I think is cool. And he said, I'm not going to be the Tiger of old. Don't expect me, as we talked about last week on this program. But I think it's cool the fact that he's helping his son become a better player and not be – and I've heard stories about Earl Woods, what he demanded of Tiger, and he made, you know what? And here's a military guy that made Tiger the greatest player of all time. I don't think Tiger wants to do that to his son. Now the expectations on his son, of course, are going to be through the roof because you're Tiger's kid. You know, Tiger's teaching you. You got the same bloodline. I mean, it's going to be tough on this kid. I'm interested to see how this road goes with Charlie.
Yeah, and I think that hopefully, and what I see is I think Tiger's taking a little different approach than his dad took with him, hopefully that's something that works better. Better when I say that, you know, Tiger may very well be the greatest golfer of all times, but you know, and we've all done things probably that we regret, you know, or we'd like to change. But when you look at Tiger's life, there have been some things on his personal side that certainly could be questioned. And the one thing that I was kind of interested in with these interviews, they were very much, in my opinion, kind of public relation driven, where the Golf Digest thing, having him kind of stroll into the interview, you know, and the questions
with the dog.
Questions have, yeah, well, the dogs, and then the dog's fine, but the questions are very easy. There's no, you know, they talk about the accident, but there's, and maybe, I don't know, maybe legally they can't ask the hard question, but, you know, about what happened, why, how. And I was telling you, Bernie, I actually went back and looked at his interview. I think it was on February 21 at the Genesis. There was an interview he did on Sunday, and a lot of people have said he looked like he was out of sorts, and I don't see that in that interview. And maybe I'm right, maybe I'm wrong, but obviously that was the day before the crash, and you know, I think everything right now is generated from, okay, Tiger's back. And you know, I see it, I guess, in two sides. I see it as, you know, from a golf standpoint. And I said this last week, I hope he can turn the clock back, you know, once or twice more. You know, he's going to be, 46 coming up here soon. So it's going to be harder to compete in the tournaments. And obviously with the injuries that he's had, you know, when I watched that interview on February 21st, he was coming off of another back surgery, and you know, so he was already hurt. Then, you know, he talked about that they almost took his leg, or it was a consideration. But I just I'm interested to see, and to me, it just looks like there's a lot of PR going on. I don't know. What do you think about that?
Well, first of all, that interview on, what'd you say, February 21st, he looked like hell. I disagree with you on that. He looked like hell. He looked like a guy that wasn't all there. And that's, you have your opinion, I have my opinion, and that's, you know, that's fine. But, and I don't, I guess my biggest thing is why why do people really want to know? I mean, do people want to, oh, he was shit-faced, he had too much vodka, or he had too much of this, or he was on Xanax, or does it really matter? I mean, why do we really care? I get the curiosity factor in people, but I don't care. I don't care, what he was on. He was speeding, apparently. I mean, that we know that for sure, but I don't care about all that other stuff. It doesn't mean anything to me. I mean, and as we've talked about throughout the years that we've done something either on radio or a podcast or whatever, I was a big negative Tiger guy when he first came out, and I was wrong, and I admitted it, and I changed my tune, and Tiger is. And I said it last week. Tiger's the greatest player that's ever played. But I don't care if he was, on narcotics or drunk or whatever. I mean, I really don't care.
Okay. Yeah, and I mean, obviously, maybe I am curious as to that, and I think when you're a public person, maybe that's part of the thing. I guess I look back and I guess Charles Barkley's right. He's not a role model. And I think he's a great golfer, but I guess, there's things that I would be, like I said, I just guess he's not a role model.
You're right. You're 100% right. He's not a role model. He's not a role model, not because of what he's done on the golf course, because of its outside life. Like I said, he's the greatest player that's ever played. But you can't bring a child up saying, this is your role model right here, Tiger Woods. I mean, and do all that. I mean, Tiger has done things the way that Tiger's wanted to. I mean, he's had 5 surgeries. He's been in, as we know, minimum 2 accidents. I mean, he's as far as painting a picture of him outside of golf, it sucks. I mean, it's awful. I mean, he cheated on his wife. He's done so many bad things, but yet every time that the word Tiger comes up, the whole world forgets about what he's done. And so I'm like that too. I'm past it. Tiger Woods is a golfer. He's not a role model. I mean, he could do that like he did that interview on Golf Digest and say, Charlie and this, and you never hear the other. You don't hear the girl's name. You don't ever hear that. It's all about his son Charlie playing golf. So, as far as a role model, no, he ain't even close to being a role model, and he shouldn't be in anybody's life.
Shu, are you there?
Dahlby, I am here. Yes.
And this is just an opinion. Does a public figure of his notoriety, is it just about the sport, or is it about the person?
Well, it's tough, right? And while you guys were talking, there was a quote that I just kept thinking about: is never meet your heroes, right? And it's a quote that we're all told at some point in our life, and you hear it all the time. There's a reason why you don't meet your heroes, because you meet these people and then you go, oh, they're not the person I thought they were. They're not the person that I saw on TV. And Tiger Woods, we got to actually see that play out in front of us on live television over the course of his career. We thought this guy was one person, and it seems that he has all of these demons and personal problems that he then dealt with in front of us all because of how big of a public figure he was. And so, Dahlby, to your point, it's obviously right. The golf tournament was his. It's his golf tournament. He runs it. He's in charge of it. So I'm not surprised that the PR is a little nice for him at these events, and that maybe he doesn't get asked a tough question because he's going to do media at his thing, right? Feels like when somebody does a charity golf tournament somewhere and they're there and they speak in front of everybody. Nobody asks them a tough question because they're there in front of everybody. But yeah, this is something that's always going to follow Tiger. It's why, to talk about what you guys were talking about, everybody asked those questions after the crash of, hey, what was going on, the back surgery, all of those things. And that's why the police had to come out and say, no, we just think he was speeding. That's what our internal investigation has concluded. That's why they had to come out and make all those public statements, because of Tiger's past, letting those questions be asked. So this is something that's always going to follow him. It's something that's always going to be there for him to deal with. And again, he's not a perfect person. Nobody is. He's made mistakes. He's made mistakes that for some people are unforgivable. And if that's the way you feel about Tiger, I can't blame you for feeling that way. If you feel like everybody deserves a second chance, and you gave him a second chance, and you rooted for him like I did at what I think is the greatest sporting achievement I've ever seen in my lifetime, which is when he won the Masters a couple years ago, then so be it. You are free to pick whatever lane you want to be in, and I think you're fair in doing so.
Yeah, and I like that. I think I like that opinion, and it's not that I'm trying to come down on Tiger. I guess I'm just and I was curious thoughts about sort of the PR piece of it, and now Bernie, if we jump to the golf part of it, we saw Tiger practicing a little bit. He had posted some shots a week or so ago, but then he was hitting some balls. How'd you like seeing him out there in his Sunday red today?
It leads me to think that him and Charlie are going to play in the PNC father-son. And I'll tell you why it leads me to this is they have 20 teams. I think it's 20. Retief Goosen, there was 19 teams, and Retief Goosen and his son had to withdraw, and I don't know why. So the speculation right there was that Tiger was going to commit. But no, they were replaced by Rich Beam and his son in the field, still leaving an opportunity for one other team, which hasn't been filled, to play in the father-son. Me watching Tiger hit balls the last few days, today in his Sunday red, which, and they might as well just ship him all that PIP money or whatever. It leads me to thinking that he's going to play in the father-son with his kid, which I think could. Go ahead.
I think you're right, and the thing about the format there, and as you remember, they played together a couple years ago, and
last year.
Was it last year? Yeah.
I think so.
Yeah, you're right. So the nice thing is that Charlie can actually carry Tiger in a way, because Charlie's going to play from front tees, and the kid hits it good. The kid swings nice. He's a pretty polished player for his age, and if he just keeps it in play off the tee, Tiger is going to have short shots into most of the greens, and if it's a par 5 that he's got to go for in 2, it's going to be a bunt 5 wood or something. So they could get around that golf course, and I think it's a great opportunity, and I'm anxious to see if that does happen.
Okay, so you brought up a good point. Now, what else can transpire out of this is the fact that Charlie hits first, okay? Instead of Tiger having to hit from the lumberyard, Charlie hits first, and Tiger doesn't have to hit driver. Charlie gets it in play, and they've got, 130, Tiger doesn't have to hit all these extra shots. So if his son can control hitting it off the tee and things like that, because they got such an advantage from the tees, I don't know what the number is, could be 80, 90, 100 yards, I don't know. But if Charlie gets it out there, Tiger doesn't have to hit, 8 gazillion swings, and you're right. You give Tiger a wedge. Give Tiger a 9-iron, and I think they'll be okay.
And I think and I think even last time they played, there were a lot of times that Charlie hit and he'd turn around to his dad, and it was kind of, he'd give him the thumbs up, and off they went. And I think that could happen again. And it was fun to watch those two play, because they do have the same mannerisms. Charlie has some of the things that, when they stand and they do different things, it's fun to see the two play. So I hope they do play.
And Tiger can ride in a cart as well, so which is going to be beneficial for him during that tournament. Let's get to his Tiger's tournament, the Hero that happened, finished today, and I'm in complete utter shock right now. I mean, I cannot believe what I watched part of it. Day job got involved, but with Colin Morikawa with a 5-shot lead going into the final round, I gave up. I mean, it was his tournament to lose, and Dahlby, he lost it.
He did, and it's funny because last week I talked about Morikawa as probably being, in my opinion, the guy the next young guy that might win 3 or 4 times a year and get to that 40 win number that we were talking about, or whatever number we were talking about. And you see him with a 5-shot lead. And we've talked about this, though, Bernie. Any time in any tournament when somebody has a big lead after 3 rounds, after 54 holes, there's going to become a time where somebody makes a move, right? So, there's somebody that's got a 5-shot lead, and it's very, very odd that a guy would just have a 5-shot lead and then, birdie the first hole and just run away and win by 10 shots. It happens. It's what Tiger used to do, but it doesn't happen. It tends to be where somebody has a big lead, 3, 4, 5 groups behind, somebody makes a move and maybe gets within 3 or 2. So there's always this time, even when somebody's got a big lead, that that player's going to have to think, but they have more holes. And you don't expect a guy like Collin Morikawa to blow a 5-shot lead, but it just goes to show they play every hole. There's a reason they don't just play a 3-day tournament or whatever you want to say, or they only play 6 holes. There's a reason they play, and everybody has a bad day, and Collin Morikawa had a bad day.
I mean, he ate that golf course up for 3 days, Dahlby. I mean, here's the number 2 ranked player in the world, and all he has to do is get to the freaking finish line today, and he's the number 1 player in the world, which I will go on record and I've said it before. I don't think there should be world golf ranking points for this event, and I'll stick to it because it's unfair. But he laid an egg today, and I feel sorry for people that had him on their MGM to win the tournament, because I looked last night and he was a negative 400. So you had to bet 400 to win 100 for him to get it done. And I actually thought to myself, I really did. I thought to myself last night watching the college football games, I'm like, how does he lose? But then I'm like, no, I'm not risking 400 to win 100. That's stupidity. And I'm glad I didn't do it, because he laid an egg. But I will tell you, and I'm sorry for Collin, that his bogey on the last hole today made him tied 5th with Justin Thomas, and I made a hefty wager this week on Justin Thomas to finish in the top 5. So thanks, Collin Morikawa. But I wanted to talk about the winner, Viktor Hovland. And here's a funny thing, Dahlby. And I know that Hovland's caddy, Shay Knight, used to caddy for Sean O'Hare. And this afternoon, early evening, I'm talking to a friend of mine, Chad, and I said, "Did you watch any of the golf today?" He goes, "No, but Hovland won, and I'm glad for Shay." I said, "You know Shay Knight?" He goes, "Yeah, he's one of my best friends." And I said, "What?" I said, he goes, "Yeah, he stays with me every year at the Phoenix Open, the Waste Management Phoenix Open." I said, "Dude, I had no idea." And he goes, "Yeah, he's staying with me this year." So I know that Hovland hasn't made an official commitment to the Waste Management Phoenix Open, but if Shay Knight is staying with him this year, I'm going to break the breaking news that Viktor Hovland is playing in the Waste Management Phoenix Open this year.
Okay, you have the inside information on a commitment, so that's good. That's good.
What I know you were teaching a lot today, but on the 18 today, and I just saw the highlights that Patrick Reed, God, this fucking guy, he got paired with Hovland, and earlier in the round on number 9, rules officials comes out, he has to hit a shot left-handed, but on 18 he took about 5 minutes with a rules official, and basically, I don't know if he was doing it on purpose. I'm not going to say it because I don't know, because I don't want Justine Reed to, find me on Twitter or something and come at me. But for 5 minutes on a ruling, when a guy's trying to win a golf tournament from the middle of the fairway and you take that long, I mean, let's get it done, dude.
what was the ruling? I didn't see. I did see a little coverage on 9, and they said he had played left-handed on 8, and he might have to play left-handed again. But on 18,
well,
why does it take 5
yeah,
minutes?
I mean, the guy's unbelievable. He kept saying that this was in his way, but it really wasn't in his way. And I was just watching reactions on Twitter because, like I said, I didn't get to see the end of it. I got to see. There was a great photo of Shea Knight, Victor's caddy, and Victor, like turning to the right, just staring, going, "Okay, dude, let's figure this out right now." He was trying to. I don't know. You have to go watch it. It's hard to explain. We've only got like 20 minutes left of the show, and I don't.
Did he get the ruling?
He got. No, he didn't get the ruling, but he. I think he tried to ice. Victor Hovland for some reason. I don't know why. The guy's just unbelievable. I more and more every day I wake up, and I hate him more.
No Captain America for you.
No, I'm out. I'm completely out of it. Yeah, I'm done. So we watched the Bryson and Brooks deal last week, and there was an opportunity on Friday for if it all would have worked out on a leaderboard where Bryson and Brooks would have played together. Jimmy Roberts asked Koepka after the second round, and he asked Bryson after the second round. He goes, "There's an opportunity that you and Brooks might be playing together on Saturday." And DeChambeau eyes lit up, and he went, "Sweet." Later, they interviewed Brooks and asked the same question. And Brooks went, "We already saw that last week, okay? We don't need that anymore." So then on Twitter, Brooks came out and said something like, "I beat him once. I can out-trash talk him. There's no need." Because they're talking about like having another match between these guys, which I want no part of. I want no part of watching these guys. And Brooks came out and said, "I'm up 2-0. Even if he beats me, it's 2-1. It's not happening."
Yeah, and I think, and I don't know what the ratings were like on the match last week, but it wasn't as intriguing as many other matches have been. And yeah, I think it's been it's been enough, and you can kind of tell the difference in how those guys act. And Brooks Koepka, he's kind of like that with everybody. It's kind of that same kind of commentary with everybody. And so I'm not surprised that he would, that the two reactions would be different, and that's okay. But yeah, I don't know that we need to keep, I guess I just don't think we need to be, I'm kind of done with it. I don't know how you feel, but I'm just kind of done with, the whole thing. Yeah. I'm
done. I'm completely done with it. So today, during this final round on the 9th tee, Jordan Spieth playing with Henrik Stenson, and they're dead last. They are dead last in the whole field. And they come to the 9th hole. And it's been the same tee box on number 9 for Thursday, Friday, and Saturday. So they both go to the 9th tee. Spieth goes to hit first, and somebody says, "Oh, no, Stenson's up." And they laughed. Stenson hits a perfect drive. Spieth hits a perfect drive. And as they're walking off the tee, a rules official comes up and says, "You guys played from the wrong tee. We changed the tees. You played from the 17th tee." Now, there was a message posted in the locker room or tee sheet or whatever. Because I remember the day when they used to give you this crap on the first tee. Here's your scorecard, which I always kept because I had good penmanship. And then they gave you the rules, for whatever. And I just shoved that crap right in the bag. Now, whose fault is it that these guys teed off on the wrong tee? Is it A, the caddy's fault, B, the player's fault, or is it C, the rules officials for not having a note saying we're not teeing off from here today. We're teeing off over there.
Well, I'm sure there was something that was posted, and it's the player's fault. Ultimately, it's the player's responsibility to know where to play from. And this, was kind of comical, but this is, because they didn't, they're out there and they're just trying to get done. They don't care. And then they got to come back and play again. And then I think Jordan teed it up in front of the mark. I don't know. It was, they were hitting out a turn. It was just, they didn't care. But this is the kind of stuff that happens in a mini tour event or a college tournament or a high school tournament, when there's an outlaw event and it's the second day and you're playing somewhere and it's 30 degrees and the first group goes the wrong place. And that's happened before. That's a Monday Q story. But that's not usually what happens when you have PGA Tour players and rules officials and everything else. So, but yeah, I would say, and maybe you disagree, but it's ultimately the players. It's always the player's fault. And now the player might not take blame, but it's always the player's fault. Your opinion?
So my opinion was the fact that the interview after the round was the greatest thing I've ever seen in my life. So Golf Channel had Spieth and Stenson, and they're interviewing him. And Stenson's like, I don't know why it's such a big deal. It's only a 2-shot penalty. I mean, it wasn't like we lost the whole tournament because of this. And Spieth started, he literally was crying because Stenson's like, we had no idea. I mean, Jordan's trying to hit in front of me. It's not his turn. We hit 2 beautiful drives down here. And then the rules official says we get a 2-shot penalty. So we got to go back. I mean, look what it cost us. I forget what he said, 17th and 20th or whatever it might have been.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah. And Stenson said in all his whole entire career, and even Spieth said the same thing afterwards, that neither one of them have ever hit off a wrong tee box. But so I'll reiterate what you said about the local tour here, the Outlaw Tour, that they had a tournament, I don't know, year and a half ago, where like the first 7 groups on like the 3rd round all teed off on the wrong tee box, continued to play, and they all got disqualified.
Yeah. And honestly, that's where it probably hurts more in a tournament like that for those guys than it does at the Hero Challenge. Because, they were just like Henrik said, it was 17th and 20th. It didn't matter. They didn't care. But you feel bad for those poor guys in a mini tour event who are scraping to pay their rent when something goes wrong like that. And I think what happened, Bernie, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I think it was the first group went there. So the second group saw them on the green and they went there. And then the next group saw them on the green. They kept going and they were on the wrong spot. So that's hard. It's hard when those guys those guys on the Outlaw Tour and many other mini tours, they're chasing their dreams. They're trying to pay the bills. It's not easy. And we need to get Monday back to talk to us about what's going on in the other leagues of golf.
Yeah, I talked to him yesterday. He's ready to come on, so maybe we'll have him on next week. That would be a good thing. It was interesting when listening to and going back to Tiger in his interview. He brought up a weird stat that was kind of cool. That he had a goal 2 times a year to go 200 holes. Not 2, not 20, not 100, but 200 holes in a row without 3-putting. Now, from a teaching perspective and how you teach your players, whether it's, Merritt O'Hare, guys in college, high school, juniors, myself, who shot 80 this week at Weekapaw, by the way. I know a lot of people probably went, what? You shot 80? You shot 93 last week. Yeah, I shot 80. 200 holes in a row without 3-putting, does that take away from being aggressive?
I don't think so. I think with Tiger, and I think with most of I would probably say with all the tour players, they're proud of that. There's the 3-putt avoidance stat, and they're proud of that. They're aware of that. I think the one thing when you look statistically at the guys and the girls on the PGA or the LPGA tour, they're from say 4 feet and in, from 3 feet and in, it's like your average is 98%. From 5 feet and in, or from 4 feet and in, it's going to be in the high 90s. So I think you can still be aggressive with your putts if you choose to be, but as long as you don't rip it 10 feet by, you're going to be fine. And so I think they all pay attention to 3-putt avoidance. The guys that I've worked with on the PGA Tour, they all talk about 3-putt avoidance. And it was funny in Sea Island a couple weeks ago when we're in the practice round, Troy had made the comment that he had not 3-putted in 100 holes or something, and he jinxed himself for the week. He 3-putted a couple times, but I think that's something that they pay attention to. And a goal of 200 holes in a row without a 3-putt, I think that's that's Tiger's standards, and yeah, that makes sense to me.
So. And I think it was like a year ago, maybe a year and I don't know, whatever it was. You and I went to we're at the putting green at Phoenix Country Club, and I told you that I'm a very lag it to the hole kind of guy, and because I'm not afraid of missing a 3 or 4 footer, I just don't want it, and. You talked to me a little bit about, getting it to the hole and things like that. How would you teach somebody that's listening or watching this show? And thank you very much for doing that. How do you tell somebody to not be scared of the second putt?
Yeah, and I think that's one of the things that I do a lot with junior golfers is that we do a lot of drills where I'm having them putt. Starting out with a putting lesson, I'll have them putt 3, 4, 5 footers, and from 3 feet, try to make 5 in a row. Then we move to 4 feet, try to make 5 in a row. Then go to 5 feet, try to make 5 in a row. If they get really good at it, then we go to 10 in a row. And then if they're really good at that, you could even play a game where it's like, okay, you make the 10 in a row, then you go to 4 feet, you make 10 in a row. If you miss, you got to go back and start again. That's a hard drill. If you get really good at it, you do that drill and you do it, from 4 different angles. I've seen that done before, but we'll do a lot of short putts, trying to get very comfortable from 5 feet and in. And then, and it's kind of maybe what we did, maybe I'll pace off, say 30 feet, and I will then take a club and maybe put it 2 feet behind the hole. And then the drill would be with 3 balls to try to get all 3 balls either, you want to make them, but if you don't make the putt, you're trying to get the ball past the hole, but not past the 2 feet. And so my thought with that is that you get very good from 30 feet with your speed control. And then if you're good from 5 feet and in, even if you mess up with that speed a little bit because you're trying to get it within 2 feet, hopefully you're not hitting it past 5 feet. And if you're at 4.5 feet, you've got a good chance. Now, what you talked about, though, is another thing in putting. You talked about what we might call the holing speed of a player. So you would prefer, and maybe a little bit like Jack Nicklaus when he putted, that the ball kind of goes up to the hole and it falls in. Okay, that might be your style of putting. You want to just see the ball just topple in. Tom Watson in his prime, his speed was hit the back of the hole, bounce up and go in, slam it in, because he was a very aggressive putter. And for a while in his prime, if he missed, it goes 4 feet by, boom, just knock it back in. And there was a time, and you may remember, Bernie, where for a little while there, he stopped making the comebackers, and he had some trouble with his putting. And then, towards the, I think he kind of figured it out towards the end of his career, but there was a little spell there. There's a lot of theories about why that happened. But there was a spell where he didn't make all the putts that he did when he was, beating Nicklaus in the U.S. Open and stuff like that. But so I think as a player, you want to choose the speed that you want the ball to go in the hole, and then practice appropriately. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely, 100%. I know some of the listeners would, because that's the big thing. There's a lot of field putters. There's a lot of aggressive putters. They're all different. But like you said, like if you're watching a PGA Tour event or an LPGA Tour event, and you see somebody that's got 3 feet, you're not really worried about it. Now, from an amateur perspective or from mine or whatever, I mean, I don't want it. I want no part of that thing. That's why I think I always play conservative. And I think it's maybe cost me shooting 77, 78 instead of 80 or 93. But the last question I'm going to ask you before we sign off on this beautiful program is green books on the PGA Tour are being eliminated beginning next year. I know a lot of people say it'll speed up the game because you're not looking at the book left and right and trying to figure this out and doing all this. But do you really think it'll speed up the game? Because now you're getting guys going behind the hole, right to the hole, left of the hole, doing all that stuff that we did back when I looped. Do you think it will speed the game up?
Well, I think there'll still be some players that have a green book. They're just going to have the caddy, shrink it down a little bit. So I still think there's going to be guys that are going to have that information. And I think players that are slow on the greens right now, whether it's with a book or without a book, are still going to be slow on the greens. And I think players that are quicker on the greens are going to be quicker on the greens. So I kind of think that probably, there may be a little bit of a shift, and hopefully they keep track of this. I'm sure they will from a timing standpoint, but I don't think there's going to be a whole lot of change in a direction that a 4.5 hour round of golf on the PGA Tour is now going to be 350. I think, we might get a couple minutes, maybe not. We'll see. What do you think about that?
Well, here's my whole thinking to it. Because there's a time penalty on the PGA Tour, and you know more about it than I do. You're going to see guys on the greens taking way more time. Are they going to come up and start penalizing and warning players because they're, you look at DeChambeau before he had the book, he was slow. When he got the book, he was even slower. So maybe this will help him. But are they going to stopwatch these guys now left and right more than they've ever done in the past?
Well, and I think if you want to speed up play, that's the way you do it, right? If you want to speed up play, you have your rules officials out there, and they've got they're and the players are aware that the clock is on because you've seen it, Bernie. There's rules officials out there, but maybe on a 9-hole rotation, is there maybe like when you're caddying, how often do you think you saw a rules official in 9 holes? Twice?
Two, maybe.
Yeah. So they can't be watching every hole, and they can't be but if the guys know that on certain holes that these guys are being timed, that's where maybe the game speeds up. And then it goes to just like baseball is talking about the pitchers having a pitch clock, I guess is what you'd call it.
And that doesn't work. That doesn't work. Then nobody enforces that. I mean, nobody enforces that pitch clock. It's there at every stadium. You can go to Bank One or Chase, whatever it's called. You can go somewhere. It doesn't matter. It says 30 seconds or whatever it says, but yeah, it doesn't. They don't do anything about it. I mean, it's just there, and that's. I mean, it's like, like when we played Weekapaw on Tuesday. We played in 4 hours and 15 minutes, 4:10, whatever it was. To me, it sucks, but I was okay with it because it's better than playing in 4 hours and 45 minutes.
Yeah, and personally, I would say that I enjoy going out on a cart with if you and I went out on a cart and we played 9 holes and it took an hour, so be it. But if we're actually playing where we're playing for something or playing where we're really worried about score, to me 4:15 is very comfortable from a standpoint. I wouldn't want to go faster, but maybe I'm a slow player, I don't know.
All right, Dahlby, thanks. Schubert, thanks for everything. Show 19's in the book. Still haven't heard from Sean Crespin. I one of these days, I think he will appear. I don't know, maybe through a text or maybe a a casual meeting at a supermarket or something like that. But I can't wait for that day to happen again. But everybody have a great rest of the week, and we'll see you on show 20 next week. I've hired a new sign company. Yeah, go ahead.
Is there golf next week? Do we have another silly season tournament? Is it the shark shootout, or is it when is the father side? You know, I mean, there's not too long that we're back on the PGA Tour, so they got to get it in quick.
Dahlby, you know? I don't know. I don't know because I'm gearing for the Tuesday match this week, which will be played at True North. So that's all my mind on right now about golf was getting through this podcast and then getting myself geared up for the Tuesday match at True North and see my friend Doug Hammer up there where you used to work. Is it the
rematch with the boys from Burrito Express?
No, I haven't heard from them guys. They still
cowards.
Yeah. What'd you say, Shu?
They're a bunch of cowards.
It's unbelievable, isn't it? I mean, you get your ass drummed, and then you just, we want a rematch right away, and then you don't hear from the guys. I mean, they got excuses. We're going to open a new restaurant, and just little things that, shouldn't imply to not being able to play in the Tuesday match. But, it is what it is. But I want to thank our fine friends at Burrito Express, or your local burrito joint, for sponsoring our program. And if you get a chance, the food there is delicious, and it's quick, it's convenient. They're good people. They support the Valley. They're huge Suns fans, huge, and turn your ears off, Dahlby, huge ASU fans, and support them because, my whole thing during this COVID thing and this pandemic is support local, and they're as local as you can possibly get. So for Shu, for Dahlby, for myself, for Cressman, have a great week, everybody. We'll see you next week.
Hit them straight, everybody.